My mill wants us to file for bankruptcy for her debt. Buckle up, because this story is 20 plus years in the making. My husband, 29M, and I, 27F, are recently married, but we're college sweethearts and have been together for 8 plus years. For context, I grew up in a big family that wasn't always well off, but worked its way to upper middle class, and my parents are still married. My husband came from a poorer background where his parents were divorced and his mom raised him. He really only saw his father for 1 or 2 holidays or when they were both visiting the paternal side's family cabin at the same time. He lived with his mom, her boyfriends, and one of his half-sisters. My husband, boyfriend at the time, was upfront that he intended on dating with the plan of marriage. As such, he was honest about his home life and finances. One day, about a year into the relationship, he let it slip that his mother had taken 4 credit cards out in his name while he was still a child. I'm not sure how or when he found out, but his mom told him that she was paying them off. Naturally, I expressed how this was not okay and that he needed to get those accounts and cards under his control. He was hesitant to do so, believing that his mom was indeed paying them off. In hindsight, he was probably more hesitant because he still lived with his mother. He also didn't want to file for fraud because he didn't want his mom to go to jail. Understanding that his mom was a single parent of 2 kids and would have had many financial struggles while raising them, I gave her the benefit of the doubt, but still nudged my husband to monitor her progress on paying them off every so often. The year after that, my husband, boyfriend at the time, told me he had to file for bankruptcy because of something unrelated to the credit cards his mother had opened. From my understanding, when he was a toddler, his mother claimed he was severely autistic and filed to receive disability payments from the state. They had been receiving these payments up until he was 23 or 24 years old. When I first met him, he told me he was autistic and truly believed he was. I have a medical background that includes experience working one-on-one with adults with autism and Asperger's. I can say with 95% certainty that he is not autistic, but he does have AD, which can sometimes be mistaken for autism. Apparently, the state began re-evaluating his case when he reached his early 20s and notified both him and his mother. While the case was being re-evaluated, the state continued sending disability checks. Instead of not cashing the checks, as you are supposed to do in this situation, his mother continued to cash them. A year later, the state determined that he should never have been receiving disability payments and sent an invoice requesting repayment of over $20,000. The debt was in my husband's name because the checks were issued for his disability. My mother has a background in law and finance, and I suggested they ask her for advice. Instead, he allowed his mom to help him file for bankruptcy and was under the impression that the debt was gone. Fast forward to 2025, when we are wedding planning and living in our own place. At this point, I suggested that my husband finally take control of those cards and accounts since we would be sharing finances and needed to monitor everything. He agreed, but wanted to wait until after the wedding because his mom was already causing problems during the planning process, picking random fights and being hostile to people we hired to help plan. It got to the point where we were considering disinviting her from the wedding because of her behavior. I was fine with waiting until after the wedding. We also met with the financial advisors in my family to plan how we would merge our finances. My brother is our financial planner. He reviewed our finances and suggested we meet with one of his colleagues to discuss consolidating our debt. We met with this colleague, who pulled up our credit reports, and we were shocked. I knew mine wouldn't be great, but my husband's credit score was normally in the 700s despite his mother's past actions, and it had dropped to 590. The colleague shared his screen so we could see the issues, and I could feel my husband tense up when he saw over $20,000 in debt still listed. My husband texted his mother about the debt. We learned that the state had continued sending letters stating the debt still needed to be paid, but they were being sent to his mother, who never shared them with us. She then told us not to worry and that declaring bankruptcy would wipe the debt clean. That's when we realized he had never actually filed for bankruptcy and that his mother had kept this a secret for almost 4 years. I was livid and immediately called my mom. My mom used to assist clients with bankruptcy filings, while my husband's mom was texting nonstop trying to convince us to file. My mom explained that bankruptcy would make major financial moves, like buying a house or car, nearly impossible for the next 10 years, that there are thousands of dollars in filing fees, and that it requires multiple court appearances. She strongly urged us not to do it. I wanted to find my mill and rip her hair plugs out. Here we were, trying to start a new life and planning to start a family within 2 years, and his mother, who had already built her life on my husband's credit, had the audacity to tell us to sacrifice our future to erase debt she caused. Not if I had anything to say about it. My husband became withdrawn as everything began to sink in, just how financially abusive his mother had been. Her behavior before, during, and after the wedding didn't help. It seemed like every bridge he tried to extend to her, she burned. He also reflected on how his half-sister received preferential treatment, no fraudulent debt in her name and opportunities like gymnastics, while he was only ever given a summer pool pass when he asked to join. My mom was incredible and found the paperwork needed to file an appeal with the state regarding the $20,000 debt. She helped him complete and submit everything. It can take months or even years for the state to review and respond, and we are still waiting. However, my mom is confident the appeal will be approved. A few months after the wedding, my husband sat down with his mom and told her we were now sharing finances and planning for a future family. He said we needed full access to monitor our credit and asked for the cards and account information, stating she would now pay him directly. She exploded. He didn't tell me everything she said, but we found out she had been running credit checks on us and accused me of opening cards. For context, our dog had to be rushed to the vet a week before this conversation because he was vomiting blood and fainting. He needed extensive testing, and we were worried about the cost. We opened a care credit card in the exam room to cover the bill. Thankfully, he is okay now, it was just severe gastritis. On top of that, his mother said awful things about his flaws, telling him he was worthless. He wouldn't repeat exactly what she said about me, but it was bad enough that he lost it, quit his job at her restaurant, and told her she had 1 month to hand over the accounts or he would report fraud. They didn't speak for over 2 weeks, the longest I've ever seen. Despite everything, they had been close, so this shocked me. He started applying for new jobs and filed for unemployment in the meantime. After 2 weeks, she called crying and wanting to reconcile, but still did not return the accounts. Soon after, she sent angry texts about how he applied for unemployment, claiming she had to pay $300 because of it. He ignored her. Fortunately, he found a new job within 3 weeks. The hours aren't ideal, but the pay and benefits are good. It has now been well over a month, and she still hasn't handed over the accounts. My husband finally reported the fraud to the credit card companies. The accounts have been shut down, and an investigation is underway. Whether she faces legal consequences is now up to the authorities. Between her behavior, the wedding drama, and the financial abuse, we are now low contact. My husband has been spending more time with my parents, who have welcomed him as their own. Some days, he's honestly the favorite child. He deserves parents who support him without ulterior motives. He has his mom muted so he can check messages without being overwhelmed. Now we wait. Edit. I want to clarify a few things. I'm a cardiac nurse. I'm good at math, but finance isn't my strength. I assumed the disability issue was state-based, which is why I referred to it that way. I wasn't involved in filing anything. As for unemployment, I'm just as confused as everyone else about her claim that she had to pay for it. It may be manipulation. We reported all cards as fraud and locked our credit. I'm not complaining, I just want to raise awareness about parent-child financial abuse. Final update. Hello everyone. I'm still a little scared to post an update on the situation because many people were mean in the comments. But as someone who usually reads these stories, I always want an update, so I guess I should follow through. If you didn't read my last post, in short, my mill had been financially abusing my husband since he was a child. This included taking out credit cards in his name and receiving disability checks from the government based on a false diagnosis of autism. My husband was not fully aware of this abuse until he was 18 and started looking into his credit and finances, at which point his mother came clean. I did my best to condense and explain events that spanned over 8 or more years in my last post, but it's difficult to remember every detail from months or years ago, especially since I do not have a background in finance or law. Many people in the comments spoke poorly about my husband and me. Let me make one thing clear, I did not share our story to receive advice about the situation or opinions on my relationship. I shared this story to bring awareness to parent-child financial abuse and how emotionally manipulative it can be. Please keep your opinions about our relationship to yourselves. My husband grew up without strong parental figures, and this past year, between the wedding and re-evaluating our finances, made that very clear. Both of his parents failed him, but his mother at least did the bare minimum to be present during his childhood. Because of that, it was difficult for him to report her fraud. It does not take a psychology degree to understand that someone with that upbringing just wants parental love and can be gaslit into believing that kind of treatment is normal. Sorry for the rant, but people on the internet often forget that they are speaking to real human beings when they leave hurtful comments. Alright, here is the update. My husband started a new job after leaving his mother's bar. This job pays more, offers more hours, and includes benefits. After one of his night shifts, he met with my mother to compare his benefits with mine. During that meeting, my mother helped him report the credit card fraud to both the credit card companies and the credit bureaus. What we initially thought were 2 credit cards turned out to be 5, totaling $22,000 in debt. This means she was likely still actively using the cards. He sent one final message to his mom, telling her she had her chance and that he was reporting the fraud. She responded with a flood of messages claiming that my family was trying to brainwash him and turn him against her. She also blamed our financial situation on me. We have no idea where that logic comes from, considering I make 4 times what my husband did while working for her, and I have never taken out cards in his name. He showed my mother the messages his mom sent, and my mom was furious. Neither of them will tell me exactly what was said, but I know it was bad enough that my mom changed her stance from tolerate her in small doses to completely cutting her off. Now that the fraud has been reported, the credit card companies have closed the accounts and will be investigating. Based on my mother's experience, unless the amount on a single card exceeds $10,000, jail time is unlikely. However, this will go on her record, she will be responsible for the debt, and she will likely face fines. It should not take long for the fraud to be traced back to her, since her contact information was tied to the accounts. As for the disability payments that the government is requesting repayment for, we are still in the same waiting period mentioned in the last post while the appeal is being reviewed. We remain confident that it will be approved, as my husband met all the criteria and provided the necessary proof. Whether that debt is transferred to his mother or forgiven entirely, we will have to wait and see. The decision could take months to over a year, so this will be a long process. We are now fully no contact with his mom. My husband rarely cries, but the abusive messages and her behavior over the past year pushed him to his breaking point. He was still at my parents' house when he made the decision to say goodbye for good and block her on everything. My parents reassured him that he is part of our family now and that he is not without parents. They hugged him, something his biological parents never did, and took him out for breakfast to lift his spirits. My husband now has the loving and supportive parents he deserves, and I am proud to come from a family that cares for and helps others. Parent-child financial abuse and exploitation are not talked about enough. Children in these situations often do not feel safe reporting the fraud because they fear losing basic necessities like food and shelter, the loss of what they believe is parental love, or even other family relationships. Just like any abusive situation, unless you have experienced it yourself, it is difficult to understand how hard it is to leave.